In a small village of Afam, in the southern part of Nigeria, lived an old couple, Ode and Ada, both in their late 40s. They were farmers, respected for their wisdom and kindness. Despite their advanced age, they were blessed with only one child, named Chinaza, whose beauty was unparalleled. However, the journey of having Chinaza was filled with sorrow and despair. Before Chinaza's birth, Ada and Ode had lost 3 children. The children either died in Ada's womb at birth or within a week after the child's birth. Their home was filled with an unbearable silence, and their hearts with an inexpressible pain. Desperate and heartbroken, Ode and Ada sought help from a powerful fetish priest in the Ogun forest. The fetish priest, a man of immense power and insight, revealed a dark secret. Years ago, Ada had insulted an old woman. Returning from the farm one sunny afternoon, Ada encountered an old woman carrying firewood. The narrow path made it difficult for Ada to overtake the old woman, who was weak and slow. In her haste, Ada unintentionally pushed the woman. Though she didn't fall, the old woman cursed Ada, vowing that she would never have a child to assist her in her old age, just as Ada had failed to assist her. Ada also retaliated and went her way. The priest performed rituals and summoned the spirits of the old woman. Ada, with a heart full of remorse, begged for forgiveness. The spirit, appeased, instructed the couple to name their next child a year after birth and to ensure the child never witnessed the annual festival of the village. This was because Ada was in a hurry to witness the festivity that was going on in the village at that time. Now, failure to adhere to these instructions will result in the child going blind forever. The couple, grateful to the priest, offered gifts of appreciation and went back to their village. A few months later, Ada gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. True to the spirit's instructions, they waited a year before naming her Chinaza, meaning God has answered our prayer. Every year, a week before the annual Osun festival, Ada took Chinaza to her mother's home in the neighboring town to ensure she never witnessed the festival. The Osun festival, celebrated by the people of Afam, is a vibrant 3-day event to thank the gods for a bountiful harvest. Marked by colorful parades, traditional music and dance, villagers wear elaborate costumes and make offerings at sacrifice shrines. The community gathers for feasts, celebrating their cultural heritage and unity, reflecting their deep spiritual connection to the land. Years passed, and the family lived in relative happiness. When Chinaza turned 16, the time came for Ada to take her to her grandmother's house. However, Ada fell seriously ill, and Ode had traveled for a family event in a distant town. Determined to protect her daughter, Ada mastered her strength, and 3 days before the festival, set off with Chinaza at dawn. As they neared the outskirts of Afam, Ada felt the urgent need to relieve herself and asked Chinaza to wait by the roadside. While Ada was in the bushes, a strange man appeared. He was looking very weird and very old. Chinaza greeted him softly, but he did not respond. He merely glanced at her, shook his head, and continued on his journey. When Ada returned, they resumed their journey. After the festivities were over, Ada and Chinaza set back to Afam. As they reached the spot where Chinaza had encountered the strange man, she suddenly collapsed. Ada screamed for help. A nearby farmers carried Chinaza to her father's house. They sprinkled water on her, and she regained consciousness, only to find out she was blind. Hey! Desperate, Ode and Ada returned to the fetish priest in the Ogun forest. The priest, now old and weak, informed them that Chinaza had seen the gods of Afam. The herbs needed to cure her blindness could only be found in the dense forest at night, and very few had ever seen or found them. Unable to help them, the priest sent them away. Life in Afam was never the same. The family grieved for weeks, but eventually they learned to live with Chinaza's blindness. Years passed, and a plague struck a distant town, causing many to flee. One of the refugees was Ike, a great hunter who had lost his family to the plague. He moved to Afam, where his hunting skills quickly made him popular. Ike and Ode became good friends, bonding over their love for bushmeat. One day, Ike noticed Chinaza was always kept indoors and inquired about it. Ode explained the tragic story of her blindness. Ike revealed that his grandfather, a renowned herbalist, once cured a young man of blindness under similar circumstances. He knew the herb used in the cure and offered to find it. Overwhelmed with hope, Ode promised Ike anything he wanted in return. Weeks later, Ike set off in the forest at night. After hours of search in the dark, he was about to give up when he accidentally discovered the herb. He recited the necessary incantations, collected the herb, and returned to Afam by morning. He immediately began the healing process, instructing Ada and Ode on how to use the herb. After 3 days, nothing seemed to happen, and hope had begun to wane. But on the 4th day, Chinaza regained her sight. Joy returned to Ode's household once again, and relatives from far and near came in to celebrate. In the afternoon, Ode and Ada, including Chinaza, visited Ike with gifts to express their gratitude. Ike then reminded Ode of his promise and asked for Chinaza's hand in marriage when she was of age. Though shocked, Ode had to honor his promise. Ike also warned that if Chinaza ever drank from a calabash, her blindness will return to him, Ike. Chinaza was now 20 years, was thriving, and Ada had suggested she learn sewing from her auntie Ineka in Omwegu village before marrying Ike, just to have the skills and she could depend on her own. They informed Ike of their plan and he agreed. In Omwegu, Chinaza excelled in her training and became well-liked and known by everybody. Now men, including the crown prince Emeka, began to admire her. Chinaza fell in love with Emeka in no time, and the prospect of becoming the princess changed her completely. During one of Ike's visits, Chinaza insulted him, and he returned to Afam disheartened. Ada and Ode, upon hearing from Ike, visited and were stunned by Chinaza's newfound arrogance and her refusal to marry Ike. Despite their plea, Chinaza insisted on marrying Prince Emeka. Months later, Chinaza returned home to Afam with exciting news. She informed her parents that the crown prince and his kinsmen will come in days to ask for her hand in marriage. This news worried Ode greatly. The next day, he called some of his elders to accompany him to Ike's house. They went to plead with Ike to accept compensation. Ike refused and sent them away, cursing them and promising that he will return the blindness back to Chinaza. Ode went back home and informed his family of what had transpired between him and Ike and what Ike had said. That night, a desperate thought crossed Chinaza's mind. She considered doing what Ike had warned her against. Determined, she fetched water into a calabash and drank from it before going to bed. The following morning, Chinaza stepped out to sweep the compound. She realized she could not see anything. She cried bitterly, and her mother, hearing her, rushed to her. Chinaza tearfully confessed what she had done. That very day, the crown prince was due to arrive to formally ask for her hand in marriage. Later that morning, Ode and Ada carried their weeping daughter back to Ike, pleading for his help once more. Ike, however, refused, feeling deeply betrayed as he had anticipated a day like this. He turned them away, leaving the family in despair. Late in the afternoon, Prince Emeka arrived with his kinsmen. After hearing the tragic event, he declared he could not marry a blind woman to be the future queen. He and his kinsmen left and never returned. Chinaza's blindness brought sorrow and regret. The prince's departure left her with a broken spirit, and the villagers' whispers only deepened her misery. With no other option, she lived out her days in isolation until she eventually fell ill and passed away. Her tale became a bitter reminder of humility, respect, and consequences of breaking promises. The villagers of Afam would recount Chinaza's story for generations, teaching their children to honor their word and the wisdom of the elders. This is the end of today's story.